All right, guys, part two of my video. Sorry, it kind of cut me off. I didn't realize I was that close to my 10-minute mark. Anyways, large studio. Um, the way you're at 150 plus people, like I was saying before, management system or managing that is extremely complex and complicated because now you are definitely at a level with staff to leadership. You're at a staff to leadership ratio that can have some real detrimental effects if not managed correctly. Figuring out how to keep the culture established, keep employees happy, positive, keep the team producing, and the managers managing effectively is at an all-time high. Um, and this is where things can start to go real hairy real quick. And I think that from a company that starts small, that progressively grows, it grows slower. I think that it's easier to transition into a successful place, going through each one of these three steps. But say a company that starts small that just hits the money the first go around and goes to that large studio size, there is some real concern for success only because of having to take that small studio culture and management style and evolving it into what a large studio needs rapidly. Small growth is not always desired, but it's uh, really a good way to learn and grow and be successful. I think more often than really quick, explosive companies that go from something really small to something really large. Next, the next slide is culture. Um, Talked a lot about culture in the book. It's like we said in the last slide. It's really easy to establish in a small studio, just because you're it's so much more personal. The relationships that you have are so much more personal because you're there with everyone all the time. You're constantly communicating. You're constantly working directly together. It really is like having a family type dynamic, um, when you're in those smaller businesses. But the larger you get, like we said in the last slide, the more complicated it is to manage that and make sure that everybody feels that connectivity while they're there. And uh, the culture is something that I feel like was mentioned the most in the book. Um, and it really is something uh, that needs to be a focal point when starting a small business, but it needs to remain a focal point as you grow as well, because it is something that you can lose relatively easy and quickly when your business starts to go from that small, kind of indie sized uh, studio, since we're using that as a reference, to a larger, we'll say, AAA, uh, just for the sake of the conversation, style studio that it is a really complicated and complex possible issue that needs to be, you know um, monitored. Next, kind of the evolution of all of what we talked about, is that uh, the company culture, it is definitely always evolving, always changing in some way, shape, or form, especially when you have staff changes or any kind of change at all. If you have people that are promoting into different positions, any kind of change within a business has the potential to create a culture change, both positively or negatively. Um, So this is yet again another reason why we need to be aware of what's going on, how what the feel is, of where we're at, and how do we make sure that it stays a positive thing. Some of the notes that I put up here are they things that can really change our company growth. Leadership styles are huge as far as changing culture and the perception of things, because that is how we establish our culture when we create a business, is by our leadership, or the owner's leadership in wanting to create this business. Communication, planning, and staff all have really big effects as well on the progression of that. Um, Picking a leader. There was a chapter that went through and talked about how it is a very logical process, typically, but it can definitely give us a lot of different results once we make those decisions. They went through and talked about the right guy, wrong role, wrong guy, wrong role, a tale of two heads. There is no I in delegate, and there was also some focus on managers, them having some kind of ego issues as far as picking someone that might have a super awesome corporate um, resume, where they worked for a huge studio and that they uh, they had this awesome title. They made super great money, so they had to obviously bring some success to their studio, when in fact it wasn't even comparable. They didn't know how to manage it, which led to a lot of people leaving the studio. The culture just changing in the course of a year. There was tons of change that happened for the negative, um, and uh, there and in that, he also talked about talking to the people, or all of the different leaders at that convention that I mentioned earlier, and kind of what their ideal leader was, and they named off all these soft skills that they would like them to possess. But it was kind of funny, because there was a bunch of discrepancies in what they said and what they did, which I found kind of humorous. The do's and don'ts for leadership, or yes, sorry, I had a brain fart for a second. Um, support the culture in the business. I mean, if you're going to want to lead a team of people, or even a single individual, if you're being a mentor to something, support what your business stands for the bigger picture. Make yourself available. Really plan your time wisely, because if you start to get tunnel visioned on something, you can really make some big mistakes that seem small in that moment, but just kind of snowball um, throughout the project, and can really kind of create a disastrous situation. Communicate with your people, which is also kind of the thing with the next bulletin, which is connect with your staff. Having those personal and professional relationships really do matter. Um, be for the team. Nobody wants to work for somebody who is just about themselves and isn't out to help the next person be successful. Our leaders only got the chance to be leaders because somebody took a chance on them and wanted to help them be successful. So um, take that chance. Be for everyone, not just for yourself. I think we're coming up on part 3. All right, I'll catch you guys on part 3 of this video.